Right. So we'll talk more now about as you're implementing your grid, your frame, steel frame in Revit, how we can reference the Rhino file in and so you can start to um, do this sort of more comprehensively. Let's see. I'll just start a new file. New project sometime today. Right. Okay. I'm just going to go to the site plan, find that 0, 0, 0 point. I'm going to assume that's the sort of southwest corner of my lot. And so I'll go ahead and put sort of the first set of grids here. Let's see, 20 feet away or something like that, maybe. It was close to 20 feet, but not quite. Let's see. There we go. 20 feet. I'll just put these in really quickly just to, let's see here. Just enough that we can sort of see what these are doing. Good morning. Hey, I'm showing how we can now reference the Rhino file into Revit. And I'm recording it so that it'll be up for you guys over the weekend. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just watch and see what the next step is here. Let's see. I think that came in at 19.6. I just need to make that 20 feet. And I'll do one or maybe 20. Well, let's see. Well, I'll do 20 feet. Same here. Now what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, you can actually select these things, hold down the control button, and you can select multiple ones by clicks. And you can actually use the move if you wanted to. I'm just going to move these up 10 feet. So now I have maybe the top sort of, let's see, northwest corner, 20 feet, and then 10 feet of like, well, will probably be overhang for me. That's what I'm thinking. All right. So anyway, here's my Revit file, part of it. I'm just going to go ahead and open up Rhino now. Sometime today. Sometime today. Right. And I actually made a little file here called module reference test. I just quickly drew in the 20, 40, 40 volumes, the blocks, but you guys have your own sort of light vessels that are approximately that size to bring in. But just show you how I'm positioning these relative to Revit, and then we'll bring them in. As soon as Rhino opens, finish just loading plugins and preparing viewports, whatever it's doing. Yeah, this is Windows Rhino.
It's easier to import all that.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can theoretically either way, you can have them going at the same time. A .3dm file is a .3dm file, whether it's a Rhino Mac 3dm file or Rhino PC 3dm file, it doesn't matter. They're interchangeable. So what you see here, I believe, right, is first of all, you see the green and the red, right? So that's the 0 and 0 axes for X and Y. We understand that that point there is 0, 0, 0, and that's exactly the same point as this blue weird arrow. So that's why I'm sort of, again, being very particular about where I'm positioning things relative to these points now, both in Rhino and in Revit. So you can see that I have in plan, I have them lining up with that y-axis. I have them overhanging 10 feet. And then I've actually lifted these up 10 feet off the ground. You don't necessarily have to do that. They can be on the ground or they can be up higher, or you can sort of play around with these things if you want. But I wouldn't just do overly complicated things just to be overly complicated, right? So think about how you see these things. Because honestly, just because this one might be closest to the entrance and this one might be the next, and this is the next, next, I can then start to think about circulation behind here and start to choreograph when and where you go in and enter these things multiple times even, right? Like at a different time, I might be at the bottom, sort of looking up, and a different time when I sort of proceed to the museum, I might actually enter it again, but up top, higher, right? So, you have this idea or this ability, I guess, with the circulation to begin to choreograph the sequence that you would prefer people to sort of see these things in. So again, I'm just, again, very particular about where these things are actually located. That's all. Relative to that 0, 0, 0 point. Understanding that that same point here is going to correspond to this point here, right? And so I'll go ahead and just close this. Right? But that's one of the things you'll need to do in Rhino. I identify that 0, 0, 0 point. Start to place you can even draw the 50 by 140-foot rectangle if you want for your site, but go ahead and start positioning these things relative to that point in order to then allow us to just reference the file into Revit without having to move it around, trying to figure out where it goes, right? So it's something that's really common because oftentimes in an office, you'll have multiple people working on the same project. So you have somebody with this file open, somebody with this file open, some of this file open over here. So you have drawings on different files, but they all have the same common reference point. So you can begin to reference things accordingly, right? So it's good practice anyway, just to sort of think a few steps ahead. Think about what that registration point means. In particular, if you're going to be referencing something from Rhino or SketchUp or AutoCAD, right? You can do that. But knowing where things are and making sure the units are the same, et cetera, really important. So I go ahead and I've just turned off Rhino now. I don't want to overburden my poor laptop here. It's starting to feel its age, I think. But you can see I have the grid. And let me actually place a few columns here, I guess. Let's see. Column, structure. Let's see, column. Um, I don't know, W10 by 33. That's totally fine. I don't care so much. I'm looking more at the proportions of these things and don't necessarily care about everything here. Again, that attitude is not like me kind of here. It's like I'm not going to let not knowing what size column I need, paralyze me and make like this on it. Right? And what's nice about Revit is I can come back later and change on it, right, very quickly. And the instructor engineer gets back to me and she said, well, actually, you should have done it well. Plug that family in and update these things, right, or whatever. You'll see that I was actually pretty careless and didn't actually snap to the right place here. Oopsie. And so column, let's see. Just make sure I get a few of these in here. All right. I'm just going to go to view and make a 3D view here since this is a new file. There we go. Remember that the parameters might not be the ones that you really want to start off with. So I'll just hold down that control key on my keyboard. Select.
Yeah, wait ask,
Without having to click each one. There probably is. I don't use Revit enough to know. Well, here, right? If I went to section, then I could actually probably select them all just by clicking and dragging, right? Because I can select those without selecting everything else. But I still had that problem where there's a line here and I didn't want to select that line. I just wanted to select the structure. So I don't know. There's probably selection filter somewhere. I just never use Revit enough to really care. So that's just my ignorance showing, I guess. Sorry. I'll put these on. Let's have these start at level 1 and end at level 2. Hit apply. There they go. Now they're actually look like they make a little more sense now, right? And let me just actually draw a few beams too as well, really quickly. It'll be easier to draw them before I have blocks in the way. Let's see. Structure again, right? Beam. Let's see. Let's go with beams are usually deeper, something like 16, 18. Let's go 18 inches deep, 40 feet. There we go. Get that snap. Whoop. Get that snap. Snap. Click, click. All right. I'll do the same thing over here. Why not? And come on now. There we go. Sorry, I just had to zoom in and out to get it to really refresh and pay attention to what I'm trying to do here. Eventually, the muscle memory develops. You'll actually get somewhat fast at this, but when there, I think we'll probably have a grid of beams and columns now. Let's see. Uh, yeah, we sure do. Look at that. All right. So now here's where we get to the good part, right? Let's bring that Rhino stuff in. Really quickly, just make sure that this is set to level 2. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, you have architecture, you have structure. I'm going to go to the insert tab. Okay. And you can see that there's several options here, but there's several options over here, like link a Revit file in, link an IFC, or link a CAD file in. And then you can import, which then loads it in and saves it inside, right? So I want to still be able to play around in Rhino with my vessels. So I'm going to link them, right? In other words, I'm going to reference this in, and it's just linked, right? So whenever I see the Rhino geometry, all it's doing is it's going back to that Rhino file, importing it in temporarily. Right? And when I go into Rhino, I can change things. The next time I open it up in Revit, the Rhino stuff will have changed. It will update, right? So in other words, we're just saying, here's the Rhino information. Here's the Revit information. When I'm in Revit, I want to be able to reference and see the Rhino information inside. But if I want to change any of the Rhino information, I go back to Rhino because it's just linking back to the file to display it. Okay. A couple of things to mention here. It's linking, and so you're basically just giving it a path, a file directory path to the file. If you move the file around after that, then the link will break and you'll need to reinsert it, right? So putting these things in the right location to start off with and just being sort of systematic with your file management, first of all, is just a good habit anyway. But two, it's necessary when you start to link things together, right? Because it's not going to remember the Rhino geometry. It's going to remember the path to get the Rhino file to then put the Rhino geometry in every time we open it up in Revit. Okay, so link CAD, right? And you can see that we have different file types here. We have DWGs from AutoCAD or DXFs from AutoCAD. We have SCSI SAT files from, we could use, let's see, what would be a SAT file? Rhino can produce SAT files. DGN, which is MicroStation, Triforma. OBJs, which was a file format made popular with 3D Studio Max and Viz. Rhino files, SketchUp files, STL files, which are stereolithography. Those are for 3D printing. So I'm just going to go to Rhino files and let's see here. Home. Is it on the desktop maybe? Module reference test right there, right? So there's my 4 boxes. They're pretty awful, mundane looking, but and there they are, right? And so you can see that they should be very
Does the import that link?
yeah, I'm linking, right? I'm linking these. All right. Now you can see, look at this, right? The columns and beams actually smack right into this, right? Now, there's a reason for that. I made a new file and I didn't adjust the levels. And so that level 2 is 12 feet above grade. Remember, by default, when you first start a new file. So I can change that and move that down to 10 if I want. Or I look at this and go, maybe that's a happy accident. Maybe I just extend this beam through and show the steel structure actually moving through the bottom of this thing, right? You could go either way. I'm just going to go to the levels really quickly. So I'll go to my section. And you can see that my level 2 is at 12 feet above grade. And I'm just going to go where I have this. I can just, instead of trying to click and drag it, I can just very precisely enter in 10 feet. All right, let's go back to the 3D view. You can see that everything's shifted and moved, right? And it's now sort of okay. Now that line is a center line, so at this point I might start to look and say, well, maybe I need to move the center line so it's not directly on my property line. So this is where you start to fine tune the grid, or start to make more decisions as needed, right? I also have a bunch of empty space up here, and I would probably keep building grid through here, right? Another question is, do you build grid in between these things, right? Because in one way, you could think about this as being outdoor space, like a courtyard, right? But it'd be a very sunny one on summer days, right? So do you place inside of here in some places? Or do you try to place a screen that goes across these blocks anyway, but then also sort of creates a screen over the sort of pocket park, you might say, right? So there's lots of variations and design decisions you can make here now, right? But that grid is going to help guide you so that you start to make, as you start to draw and model further, things start to align a little better. Okay, all right. So, let's see here. Let me just move this around. And so, yeah, I might, let's see, this is the first column thing I drew. For whatever reason, it's labeled 2. Oh, it's because this one's labeled 1. And by the way, if you want to actually change the numbers here, let me just go back to my site, I guess. You should just be able to click on there and change them. Cancel. It's telling me I already have a 1. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. It's very helpful, Revit. So maybe I just quickly, just so I can keep these things straight in my head. Etc. All right, let's see. Now I've only done like half my site. You can see that these things are just sort of floating off in space. Let me just show you the example I showed the other day. Here we go. All right. I'll show you a couple of things extra here. So this is like the cooking show where I actually have implemented, some more of my frame. What's interesting about this, again, I'm just sort of doing this intuitively, but I think we would know that, if I look at the underneath here, I'd have columns, I'd have bigger beams along the edges, and I have smaller beams on the inside. And then eventually I'd put some sort of decking there. Or I'd probably, again, put beams out here somehow to sort of incorporate the sort of, what do you call it? Cantilever. I'm not so necessarily worried about that. Like, this is the very first architecture design studio, I think. So like, I'm not that worried about like getting these things just right. What I want to do is make sure that it's very clear that you have a sort of clear, say this, clear ordering system that you're using things. Okay, thinking about grid. How you can begin to order things. So you can go deeper or further as you go and make things a little more accurate. And if you're thinking about, again, some of your precedents, like I think about the zinc museum, right? That zinc mine museum was really lovely. It had lots of cross bracing and things like that, right? So let's see. You can play around with maybe having smaller columns and then more of them frequently if you'd like. Make it lighter, but then more of it. So it almost looks more like scaffolding. And you can certainly put in cross bracing. Let's see. If you go to structure, look, there's brace, right? So you can go with bracing. It's a little more convoluted than I think it should be. But what it basically wants you to do is make a sort of elevation here that's just a bracing elevation, like a bracing drawing. But you can begin to sort of click here, I think, more intuitively and try to connect things up to these nodes. So for instance, if I
When and where do you always?
that's what structural engineers for. Like architects not going to stamp that drawing. It's the structural engineers going to stamp that drawing.
Probably this big, probably.
the structural engineer say you need cross bracing or you need something to sort of keep this thing going. Now let's figure out how and where. Do you want to see it on the outside or do you not want to see it on the outside? Do you want to see it on the inside? Where are your cores, right? They'll start asking questions and you'll have a long conversation about it. This is a big decision. I mean, if you want to guess, right? Like that's what I'm talking about here. I mean,
Yes.
presumably, right? You know, you would probably need some in both directions, right? Um, but what I'm going to assume is that, let's say I just put some on this short side here. Let me just move this around, try to, so I can actually see what I'm doing here. See, and this is what's annoying. It wants to draw things on the XY plane, and it's not letting me snap to where I want to actually snap. See the arc down here? Yeah. So anyway, I'm not going to like play around with the cross bracing at the moment because it's real pain in the ass. But if we look at your thing, say, let's start to make this thing a little more intricate. Maybe you want it to sort of feel high tech, right? Let's start to add some of those details. I can refer you to some YouTube videos too for how to simply tell it which connections to make, and it'll start to fill those in. You know, those kinds of connections where we saw a column and a beam and then a plate that was welded in, and then this thing fingers into the plate, right? So it notches in. So those sorts of connections, sorry, not Autodesk, Revit will do for you. But it's a process. And I don't think it necessarily applies to everybody right now. Okay. Um, Now I will say a few things here, and that is, let's take a look at the backside here of this thing. Yeah. So we don't have any floors here, right? Like, let's say this is like an atrium. Now the question becomes like, hey, well, how do we get people up and down and things like that? And so one of the things you might begin to do is actually want to draw some floor slabs, right? Some floor plates. You have things in here inside of this. You're not going to recreate that in Revit. So if you have an opening here, and then that brings me onto a landing where I can look out like a Juliet balcony and sort of look down and around and see a framed opening of sky or whatever. That's perfectly fine. But now we need to sort of think about, in this case, this axis of, you know, sort of putting in circulation, and then having some vertical circulation, some key places. So if I go to, let's say, top view, let's see, there's L1, right? Let's go to L2. Wait, which drawing am I in? Okay, wait, hold on. It switched it switched files on me here. I have like several files open at the same time. Let me just close. Yeah, I'm not going to save changes to that one. Okay, now I'm back on this one. Okay, finally. All right, so maybe I'll go to like level 2, right? You can see that I have my Rhino geometry here. If I go to architecture tab, right? So we've been playing around with architecture and structure, a little bit of view, and now insert or link our geometry in from Rhino. But if I go to architecture, I can put in floors. Ta-da, surprise, right? I could say floor architectural. Let's do floor architectural. And what it's going to ask is, do you want something generic, metal roof deck, where you can get more specific, steel bar joists, 10-inch wood joists, concrete 10-inch slab? That would probably be slab and decking, right? Because this is just the generic. I'm just going to go with, let's say, concrete 10-inch. And now what it's going to do is it's going to ask me to start to draw, maybe, boundary line. Sorry, I guess I'm just going to draw. For whatever reason, I didn't have this selected. I don't know why it's acting so goofy on me, but maybe I go ahead and start to place a 6-foot wide circulation hallway or something here. What's that? The floor. It's a floor slab, but yeah, it would be a corridor. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and make the green check. Now suddenly I have what should be starting at L2 and then going down, it's at 10 inches, right? The floor plate. So let's see. And again, this might start to conflict with the beams. Indeed, it does, right? So now what I need to do is I need to start to sort of place the beams and start to tell them actually they go down. You need to offset them. Now you need to move the beams. You want the floor at level 2. So the beams need to move down. You know what I mean? Right? So here I'm going to lift this beam. I know the floor is 10 inches. So I'm going to say start level offset. I'm going to say negative 10 inches. And that should move them down 10 inches. Should. Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. What way? What do you mean?
So that you drop something, drop exactly.
Yeah,
Something that good for.
that's what I'm doing right here, the start level offset. So I'm saying let's drop it negative 10 inches from level 2 now. So level 2 will change. Oh, no, you're right. Actually, no, you're right. Why is it? Okay, yeah, let's see. Negative 10. Sorry, there we go.
Is there a way to select the whole lead or just leave the whole thing?
Oops. And I did 10 feet instead of 10 inches. Hold on, negative 10.
That
Say that again.
So you set the floor,
Mhm.
the floor set itself.
At level 2, the finished floor level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I up to between the beam, but we now the floor can't hold up itself because it has to sit up on the beam. Was there a way to select your 12-inch I-beam and just have Revit move it in a way that it
That's what I'm doing.
just enough so that there's no humidity error, so that they're all at the same level. I see that you're putting in maybe 10 on each one, but what if you have to do, 75 of these things? And you do this one.
I don't know. I mean, then you're not being careful enough. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know Revit. I don't use Revit well enough to understand like how do I, let's say, select all the beams at once on the level. There probably is a way to do it. And what I would do is just Google it or ask ChatGPT.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there are for sure shortcuts like that. If I was in Rhino, if I was doing this, I would basically write a Python script that did it for me. But I can do that. But not everybody can do that, right? So, I mean, that's the nice thing about Rhino is you can extend it, get under the hood, and start to make it do all kinds of interesting things. If you know a little bit of Python or C Sharp, so or Visual Basic even, which is kind of a pain, but you can do it. I'd keep not putting the tick mark for inches, and so it keeps like making them go down 10 feet instead of 10 inches. So that's what I would do. I mean, this is small enough for us that I think you can pretty much handle this without and sort of look at each one of these. And then the other question is, do I not necessarily need all of these beams? Maybe I need a beam every other floor or something, right? Just to sort of keep this thing rigid enough, but I don't necessarily, where do I have floors, right? I think this was an interesting question, right? Because you could do ramps. You could think about how this thing becomes, a series of ramps and what would you say? Ramps and landings. It's kind of a pain, but you could do that. In which case, probably people would go up to the elevator at the top and then work their way down rather than working their way up the ramps, right? So you can think about different ways you can incorporate circulation. But I think one of the key things is when you get these boxes into rhinos, start to isolate and understand where where you want people, where there are thresholds into each of these boxes, and there might be multiple thresholds. One down here, one up here, one over there, right? So how do you then begin to make a systematic circulation system to get people there?
How would you draw that? Remember that caterpillar from the French Museum, the external, escalator?
Oh, the escalator?
Yeah, out of the caterpillar. Did you draw that in like Revit or Rhino?
Well, we have ramps, we have stairs, we have railing.
And then you can bring them all the way down.
I'm not sure. Uh, I would just have to Google it. Yeah, I don't see an escalator button, but there's probably a way to make an escalator in Revit, or to place one. Again, when it comes to this, you can always try to find more families, right? So Revit, I didn't really cover this, but Revit, like, let's say it has a family of like steel shapes, right? And then within each of those families, like let's say the W shape of steel, right? There's several types, there's different types, like W18 by 33 or W10 by 40 or whatever, right? And so you can always load in other families. Like you can go and find, if you go to manufacturers' websites, oftentimes they'll have Revit families that you can download for free and then insert, right? So I mean, I don't necessarily want you guys like putting in couches and TVs and things. Like, I mean, that's not the intent here. Let's design the architecture first. But for sure, now like we start to place things inside of here. Now, what's really interesting, and one of the things hopefully you start to learn from is that you start to make these decisions, it's really easy to make decisions that look good here. Sort of in my helicopter overlooking, but nobody sees your building things. So let's make a perspective so we can begin to see what this space looks like. Okay. So as we start to make decisions, we can go back to that perspective and start to look and evaluate the decisions we made. So again, if I go to view, right? We use 3D view and you can make a default 3D view to get that axon that I have here, right? But if I pick camera instead, now I can click and position a camera, and then I can position where it's actually looking. And now I get a perspective, right? And you can see that I have a frame here, and I can move that frame and stretch it a bit. So I can begin to see what's going on in here, right? So if I look at this and go, oh, that's kind of a lousy looking entrance, maybe I need to make it more grand and taller and et cetera, then you have to start thinking. I can turn shadows on, of course, right down here. So I can turn sun path, shadows. I can tell it to render. Rendering in Revit's kind of blah, but now I can go back to my I can look at, let's say, my oops. Here. Let me select this window, and then suddenly you'll see that the camera is selected in all my views. I can go ahead and move this if I wanted to. And of course, I could move the target that it's looking at as well, I would think. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Let's see what that 3D view looks like. Yeah, so it's going to update as I move that camera around. Or I can place a different camera. Let's move it over here and see what we see. Right, so now we're starting to understand, now actually, like, this looks like a really kind of compressed space. It's really kind of small. And we might start to sort of change things accordingly. Let's see. Let's move that camera just a bit more. And in fact, if I go to the section view, just like the front or side view or whatever, right or left in Rhino, I can move this thing up and down. Let's see what that looks like now. So now I'm above that slab. I'm looking out over this. The sort of narrow, long atrium space. Maybe another source no maybe. So if I, again, I don't necessarily have to change any of the specific columns. What I can do is pick the grid line and move it, and then all the columns and beams should change with it, right? Maybe then I move this down. I'm not being very precise with clicking and snapping, but and you can see that.
It's all you and
Yeah, I think so.
you turn that on and on.
No, nope. No, it's just on. Um, we mentioned stairs yesterday, right? Might as well show you this while I'm thinking about it. Let's see here. First of all, I might bring this over all the way to my staircase, right? Yeah. So let's say I've made a slab and I want to modify the slab. Let me go back to my level 2 plan here. You can see that I have these, and I could even move this reference around if I wanted to and move it over there. There we go. But let's say I'm going to move this so it actually aligns a little better here. Oops. I didn't select the right thing, did I? Let's see. I can move all the stairs at once. There we go. All right.
What if you put a ramp for your wheelchair?
First things first, let's modify our floor that we already made. So I can modify, I can say edit boundary, right? I could get rid of this. I could start to draw more. Let's make it line up with that. There, close it up. Must be in closed loops. Where is it? Where is it? The highlighted lines are open on one end. What end are they open? Doesn't look open to me. Show. Ugh. Let's see here. I'm just trying to figure out why it's telling me this. Continue. It doesn't show me where. Oh, I see. They're not quite lined up there. Ugh, damn. Go ahead and change that really quickly. Make sure I'm snapping in the right place, I guess. And snap, snap, snappy. Let's go ahead and do it now. Okay, there it is. And it'll fill in blue and sort of show you when it's selected that it's full. So I could, again, sort of bring this up to the stair. Let's see. But really quickly, I'll show you how we can make stairs. And then we'll also try to make some ramps if we can. All right. Yeah, that looks about right, though. You can see that I also made a landing and continued the railing around. This would, of course, need railing, etc. I'm not sure why I don't really like that sort of bump in and out or whatever, but we try to fix something like that. And the question is, do I put it here in the end, or would I tuck it in between these two things, maybe? Or, there's lots of different ways you could think about this. But what's nice about it is once you have it drawn, you sort of figured out the stair and how much the footprint it's taking up, right? I can sort of simply start to move it around and plan and start to play around with this sort of bigger strategic move of like, where do I put stairs, where's circulation? All right, so let's see. I'll put one, let's say right in here. So I'm going to go to L2. There we go. Or maybe even just L1. I'm just going to go to the first floor plan. There we go. And I'm just going to put it, let's say, right in here. All right, so I'm going to go to architecture. I'm going to go to stair. And it's going to say run greater than a stair by specifying points. All right. Then there's landings and yeah. So right now it's assuming that I'm going to go from level 1 to level 2 with these stairs, right? I can change that, of course, but I'm going to leave it because I want to go from level 1 to level 2. Seems kind of, you know, top offset, base offset, desired number of rises. That'll give me the riser height of just something like just shy of 7 inches, 6 inches plus. Tread depth, 11 inches. Okay, that's fine. Um, and let's see, I'm going to try this, make a run. You'll notice these things over here do not make that sort of winder, this U-shaped winder. Stairs don't, especially for fire stairs, they don't radial out. You have a straight run of stairs, then a landing, then a straight run of stairs for egress purposes. So let's see here. I'm trying to, again, figure this out. And I want to make sure that I have a landing. Let's see if I can get this to work right the first time. Let's make a landing. Pick 2 runs, create a landing. Oh, yeah, 2 selected runs have an elevation in common. It's not letting me do it. Always when I'm doing this in front of people. Let me just cancel. Let me start again. Let's see, stair. Let me see if there's something over here I'm missing. Again, I don't do this enough to let's see. Let's see, desired number of risers, so 18. So there'll be 9, then plus landing, 9 with landing, and then 9 going up to the slab, second floor slab. I'm doing a straight run, connect levels, convert, edit, flips the up and down direction. Yeah, okay. Let's try this one more time. Sorry about this. Yeah, but I want to show you how you can do this. I mean, unless you just want to figure it out yourself, which we're getting really close to doing here, unfortunately. So this is a straight run of stairs. I really do want to switch back. Create sketch by sketching the shape. Ugh, no, I don't want to do that. Let's see. This shouldn't be so damn hard. Landing, pick 2 runs and create a custom landing. Oh, I see. What I can do is I can say, let's do, well, no. You can tell it the desired number and it'll try to figure that out. Let's see. But you do it like half and then you do another half. And I don't know why it's how you do. That's an interesting idea. Let's try it.
Oh, I need to tell it that was a relation, I almost, I was the, I would know that. Between those two, one and 50%.
Yeah, I don't know what this is doing. I might actually embarrassingly have to watch a YouTube video to remind myself how to do this. It didn't used to be this, huh? Didn't used to be this complicated. It was actually quite easy to make switchback stairs. I don't understand why it's doing this. Of course it is. That's to move it. Oh, I see. See if this is working or not. Okay. Create sketch, stairs path. Oh, Jesus. All right. And then, Jesus. Boundary. I'll draw something here. Let's see if this works or not. This is so annoying. Not finishing must be a closed loop. Well, that's what I did, jerks. All right. Oops. Switchback stairs. Simple switchback stairs in Revit. Creating a switchback stair. Do I watch this video? Like, how hard can it possibly be? Select the automatic landing option. Move the stair object into position. Balance the stair runs. This is in Revit 2020. Back when it used to be quite easy, apparently. I set automatic landing option. Huh. I don't see an automatic landing option. Here, let me look. Once we get this be going between 1 and 2, then we can say connect levels and connect all the levels and make it vertical. But I don't understand convert to sketch base. Flip. I Oh, this is so embarrassing. I wouldn't wish this is my worst enemy. All right, we'll watch the 2-minute, 26-second video. Anyone else figure it out? Or is it different in 2026 versus 2024? Okay, I'll pick stairs. Run. Yeah, okay. Oh, no, interesting. I forgot to also to sort of, oh, okay, I see. Hold on. Maybe that's what I'm doing completely wrong here. I'm not actually going over to the properties to look at what kind of stair I'm putting in. Run, straight, right? What's that? Yeah, straight. Number of risers. Well, okay, let's see what it says now.
Okay. So also change the stair type. You can change the one with one. For this stair, you want to align them.
Oh, and then there's automatic landing. So why isn't it working with an automatic landing? Let's see what else it says. Run width. Let's do 3.0. What else?
Right. And verify.
Run right. Automatic landing. Okay.
Specify the stuff. Right. As you drive, the running.
Oh, do you just click before you get to the full? Oh, duh. Okay. Okay, this is dumb. All right, this is just user error. I'm just an idiot. Okay. So if I just do this and I go, okay, 3 risers, 9 risers created halfway. And then I can add the next set and it'll put the, that's it. That was so dumb. Okay. I'm just an idiot. Yeah, no, so I'm going to go ahead and also, while it's still here and I haven't hit the green check mark, so I can still change things. I can actually specify a railing. In this case, I'll just say glass panel. Right, I just want it to be sort of a minimalist railing. I don't want it to be too busy. And it should put the railing in. Let's look. Where'd it go? Oh, where's my 3D view? Let's just bring it back up here. 3D view. There we go. No, 3D view. Here we go. All right. You can see that we have that stair. You can see the stringers. You can see the treads. You can see the landing that it put in. Why is it not showing railing?
In this case, the stair is under the column. And Revit moves stuff while it's in 3D there, so you were able to right.
So if it's going, yeah. So the first part of to answer the first part of your question, like it's going to tell you if you're drawing it over a beam or a column and go like, what the crap?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to do this? Like you can't do this. So we're not going to let you do it. Fix it, right?
But you see how it
yeah.
In 3D without.
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. First of all, I haven't hit the green check mark yet, but because this is just simply because of the way I drew it, right? Let me go ahead and hit the green check mark. Oh, now I'll put in the railing for us. Okay. And let me just go to, oops, I keep actually hitting the X when I'm trying to go to one of these plans. So yeah, here, like for instance, let's look at this stair and I can move it away from the beam and the columns.
Even as this. You'll have a bigger. You'll have a bigger spot in the middle of the stairs with these. So landscape one, but to make a landing margin so that you go right.
You can do it in Axon as well. Sorry, what now?
Instead of moving, leave it as is. Have all the, you don't waste any space inside that box, but just put your strips go in with north or right, so that first set of stairs initiates just to the right of that first column. That makes it better.
You mean like over here?
No, I like where you have the stairs first place, but the first step was the front of that column. Can you just barely stretch that, your land, stretch it 2 or 3 feet upward so that your landing is a bit larger, but the stairs are now not in front of that column.
So if I was going to stretch something, I'd select it.
Right here, the stairs were starting here. Could you just stretch this landing?
Right, so that it wraps around the column.
So that you save all the space here, you can
So if I
use
wanted
this.
to, if I wanted to stretch,
Do that.
If I wanted to stretch, then I'm going to select this and then go ahead and hit edit stairs. Right now I come back to this and setting and I can start to change this. So I could move this, right?
Okay, you move the stairs, but it's still, okay. Yes, you can.
Right? So that's how you would,
Well, yeah.
right? If I was thinking about that ahead of time, um, I could have drawn it that way, right? Going around this the column.
It's gonna be awesome for everything. It's gonna be like awesome to be able to drag it. So all you did was you edited that.
So you select it
Just
and then you
drag-
go up here and say, I want to edit. So I basically just selected it and hit edit. And then now I can see its parts. I can move this. And
Okay.
because it was done with the auto landing, the landing should stretch with it.
This part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay.
Great question. But if you have something drawn, you select it, there usually is an edit button up here.
Yeah.
And then you see this green menu and you can.
Okay.
So for instance, if I go column, I could edit the family. If I have this floor slab, that's how I edited the floor slab before too. So if I go to, let's say, to architecture 2, I could say edit the boundary and I could change its shape around, right? All right, so I'm actually going to do something a little different here. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and close this, delete this stair and make a different one. Now that I know how to do it, because it's so intuitive. It takes me 10 minutes to think about how to do it. But anyway, maybe it's me. It's just me. Let's go stair, right? And I'm just going to do run straight, just like I had it before, automatic landing. And I'm just going to make it so that it comes out this direction. Let's see, how many do I have here? 9 risers created. And I'm going to come back this direction. Oof. 9 risers made. All right. I don't think I set the rails. Let's see, edit stairs. So I'll go back and I'll select them. Ugh. Maybe I can put railing here. I don't know. No, here, maybe I can just select them all at once and then do the railing, select levels. I don't know. Anyway, I think maybe, let's see, let's look at the 3D view and see what we have here. Oh, okay. It already put the railing in, right? So anyway, I have it going from first to second floors. I haven't actually added the third and fourth, fifth, sixth floor plates or slabs, but I can, make these stairs wrap around. So if I click them and go edit stairs, and then I can say, connect levels. I don't understand why it's not letting me do that. It's annoying. It's not letting me do that. Ugh. All right. Maybe I'll just do this all at once. I'll do it one more time by deleting and redoing it again, which is the most inefficient way of doing anything. But stair. Ay, ay, ay. Not having a good day here, but it is what it is. Railing. Yeah. Connect levels. In this case, I could say go to view. Let's see, section 01. And I could say modify create stairs. There's a prompt here that says click to pick level area, select a multiple. Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to select these and hit enter. It's going to say, okay, you want to do the same stuff? And I'm going to say yes. And hit green. Right now it's sort of connected all those up, right? So That's a lot easier than sort of building your own stairs in Rhino from scratch, right? Um, and you can see that the railing they have it's all going to be code compliance railing, right? That's sort of, making sure people can't fall through, little kids don't fall through, your head can't get stuck, that kind of stuff. And that it meets egress code requirements as well. All right. The rail is not continuous. Breaks in the rail currently give sharply angled transitions. I'm not so concerned about that because I'm never actually going to make a set of shop drawings for this. I don't know why it's goofing off with that railing, but whatever. All right. Okay. I'm not going to do elevators. You know why? Because I can't remember where the elevators are. I'll have to look that up ahead of time. But if you want to screw around with the elevators, you can, there's nothing stopping you from Googling that. You can see that again, the resources, it's not like how much like weird, obscure knowledge can you store in your brain. It's how do you find the answers? Where do you find them? Where the reliable sources are? Because that's, these tools come and go. I've seen a lot of them come and go over 25 years. So learning how to learn is, I think, the key thing. That's the real currency here. Yeah, 3D Studio Max, Form Z, Triforma, 3D Studio Viz, Studio Tools, which is the precursor to Maya. I've seen them. There's tons of them. They come and go. AutoCAD came and went.
Yeah.
Yeah, came and went. We can try stairs, though. Should we try stairs? Or ramps, I mean, ramps? All right, let's see. Systems. First of all, let me just go to systems. Maybe we can get ourselves in trouble and find. We're not going to actually add any like ductworks or anything, so don't worry. But
So to get those, yeah, like first set of stairs.
you say
And then you
multiple.
went to your property and took and just stretched it, and now it's that, and you took it all the way.
Yeah, it took me to my section view, and I could select each level I wanted it to sort of go up. Yeah. All right. So if you want to try that out this afternoon, go for it. If you're not, and you just want to get things in place, work on that grid, get these modules in from Rhino, do that first. Okay. You can always, if you're having problems with the stairs, you can always just sort of say, look, I can go to any of these plans and start to quickly sketch something out myself and go, how do I want circulation to work? Right? That's the important part. I can help you implement it if you know exactly what you want to do. Right? So don't let the technology get in the way of just making some good, solid decisions. I use the metaphor, you've heard the story of like, you have a bunch of rocks and pebbles and gravel and then sand, and you got to make them all fit in the jar. And you don't start with the sand. You start with the big rocks, the big decisions. When you get those in, then you can start to make the secondary decisions, put in the gravel. And then you can start to do the real granular, sandy, the sort of tertiary decisions, right? So make those big decisions, get them set. And then the goalposts aren't going to move on you at all from there, right? Then you can start to move on to the next set of decisions, right? So it's a little bit of systems thinking here, right? Like what comes first? How can I be systematic? And look, some of it is trial and error, right? So play around. Again, the mantra here is fail faster, but don't let failures in the software get in the way of just simply making some sketches. That's our craft, being able to sort of draw and think, right? With a pencil and a paper if we need to. And try to figure this out. You could sketch a section, you could sketch an axon, you could sketch a plan, right? But how do you sketch a plan? You're probably going to start with the grid, and then you're going to try to add, where I think these cubes are, or whatever, and then start to figure out circulation and where you don't have where things are open below, where I'm going to put stairs. Is it on either end, like a hotel tower? Is it in the center, like an office with a runway around it, right? Those sort of mid rises and high rise where they consolidate the cores and then you basically have a raceway. Or whatever, right? So I think that's the key thing to think about, right? What are those big moves? How does circulation, not a really complicated thing, but how do I just simply where do I have floor plate for circulation? Now, based off of that, now I will say, we go to, let's say, level 2, right? If I have a stair here and a stair here, and this level 2 goes all the way out to here, what we call that is a dead end corridor, right? In other words, if I'm out here on this part of the circulation, let's say the slab, and there's a fire between me and and between here and here, right? I don't have a second means of egress, it's dead end. Right? You're only allowed a certain amount of dead end corridor space. I want to minimize it as absolutely as you can. Right? So what I probably do is pull this out and say, if I need this path to get me to a space over here, I'm going to make the opening right here and just have a little bit of a landing just past the stairs. Right? That I don't have 20 feet of dead end corridor or 25 feet of dead end corridor, whatever that is. Right? Because that's people understand they don't like to fry them. And you're criminally responsible. Making sure that this thing complies to code. First of all, what the city or county or whoever's looking at this should red flag that, and then you lose a lot of credibility to rise if you're drawing a bunch of different. So they won't probably let you do it. But again, just knowing those rules, right? So in this case, it becomes a strategy. Like, what are the rules now? So that when I place stair here and here, people can get out in case of emergency. And if they can't get to this stair, they can get to this. So if I'm here, then I have an option. I can go this way or that way, right? If I come over here, again, right? Same two options, right? If I'm here, I only have one option. And I'm cut off from it. So extend that out just a little bit, but you don't want 20 plus feet of dead corridor. And we would never do that in school because it's just no reason to again, make people suffer. The other thing I'm sort of looking at here, in my case, I made the assumption that I'm going to have, a very long, sort of tall atrium, narrow but long and tall, sort of atrium with trays of circulation that sort of look down on the rest of this wall. With some stairs maybe hanging on the ends or out into the space. So that's my assumption, but it's not something you have to do, right? In which, if I did this, then I probably have people enter here, right? Down on axis, and I put in some sort of circulation desk, and start having paths and ramps or stairs, and thinking about where I tuck in elevators. Then I could have a zone in here for these courtyards where I can actually plug in an elevator in the center, maybe stairs on either end. And then think about what I do out here on the outside. Right. So, I mean, again, this is what I was thinking, but there's nothing keeping you from sort of, again, making your own decisions, right? About these things. Let me show you what I mean, right? Like, so if I move this here, and and I move my stairs over. Oh, come on. Why do these things only move when I don't want them to? All right, let's see. Here, let's say something like that. Let's see here. Let me actually make these things touch. That's just a little dead end. Like that's not a big deal, right? So if I wanted to do that and I wanted to move this one over here and do the same thing, right? Then what happens is, another nice thing about that is when I enter in on the ground level here, I get like a sort of tall grand space and I see circulation, just a little further up, but above me, and I start to see people circulating. So it could be kind of a nice dynamic way of sort of thinking about this. Let's say here, right? Now suddenly I don't have this thing compressing me right over my head. But I actually have a sort of tall space that I'm entering. You can see it's quite shady down here on the north side, right? With a party wall, with my neighbor here. So then the question becomes, how do I begin to see that north face as a scoop or something that I can start to bounce some daylight into to make it a little brighter in there, right? Not direct light, but bouncing some light down into the space. Yeah. So we're talking just a little bit about circulation, egress, right, and code, life safety, right? So again, when you're trying to get people out of the building as safely as possible and timely as possible, right? So oftentimes, these paths will have some sort of material rating that ensures that they can outlive a fire by at least 2 hours or something, giving people enough time to get out, right? Get a 1 hour rating, 2 hour rating, whatever. You're not really trying to save the building per se as much as you're trying to preserve ways to get out of the building for humans and any other living thing, and then get them away from the building, right, in a timely way. So oftentimes, and you'll notice this sometimes, there might be a landing in here. You might pull this stair away from the slab. Who had the question about what do people in wheelchairs do yesterday when we were walking around? Yeah. So this might be a landing inside of here, inside this door. And this might be a refuge area for anybody with a wheelchair, right? And they sit there in the fire rated stairwell and the landing waiting for somebody to come, probably with a firefighter suit on and pick them up and carry them out. So let's see, what else? Oh, ramps, right? So ramps are, how many of you are thinking like ramps for this project? Were any of you thinking ramps? You were thinking ramps? All right. So ramps are very prescribed, right? First of all, the slope has to be something that people can maneuver, whether you're walking or on crutches or on a wheelchair. So it can't be too steep. It's a 1 to 12 slope, right? One foot for every 12 feet. 1 foot of rise for every 12 feet of run, right? So 1 to 12. Let me just add these maybe in the, I think I forgot to, did I? Oh no, I'm never mind. I am recording this. Okay. So, and you really, I think you can only have like 30 feet of run before you have to put in a landing. Let me double check that. But basically, it's a matter of civil rights, right? Like the Americans with Disabilities Act said, really we need to make every experience, every building accessible to every human. And that means even if they're confined to a wheelchair, or blind and sight impaired, or whatever, right? And so we have these sort of rules and regulations that came from that act, right? And so there's certain things like, for instance, these speakers, since they project out from the wall so much, they have to be at a certain height. Because if they were here and they projected out, and I'm sight impaired and I'm using a stick, I could run into them, right? If they have to be down here, I have to put a curb around the floor so people can't walk into it. They have to walk around it, right? So same thing with ramps. Ramps are prescribed for the length of ramp, like how far you make people do this with their wheelchair potentially, and then also the steepness, right? So the grade, the slope is 1 to 12. That's the maximum slope. Then you have to have a landing, certain amount of length, then you have to have a landing, certain amount of length and a landing. So if you're just doing some basic math, we have 140 feet of length, right? You subtract a little bit for landings and things like that, you're really only going to get maybe 10 runs of 12 feet, 120 feet of ramp. And there's going to be landings throughout to get, so 120 feet. Let's see, what did I just, Yeah, 10. That would get you up to 10 feet, right? So each run of 12 would get you up 1 foot.
Just raise the ceiling, a couple feet, you have the little tower ceiling and use that.
Potentially, right? So that'll begin
So
to
that you're slow.
that'll make you figure things out, right? Like that's a so if I think about going from all the way to this to all the way up to here, I could do 120 feet of ramp and still have 20 feet of play for landings along the way and landing at the end. And a landing at the beginning. And I could get up to 10 feet of height of elevation, right? 12-foot runs over 120 feet would be 10 feet in height. 12 times 10 is 120. Right? So if I'm going from 0 to 10, I need 120 feet of ramp plus the landings. You could always do switchback ramps. So you get people up half the way and then have the switch and go up again and get them the rest of the way.
How are these things that you made the boxes?
The boxes are 20 by 40 by 40. So 40 feet tall.
By 40 plus your steel at the bottom, which I very can thank you, question.
Well, for ramps, you're looking at floor to floor. For structure, you're looking at that floor to ceiling because the ceiling will be a little lower than just the floor level, right? So you have thickness there, right? It's not easy, right? Like this shit is hard. That's why you go to school and practice, and you work in an office and practice. That's why those sections come in really handy, right? So I can go to the section in Revit. Let's go to section. And I can begin to see just how thick some certain things are. It's not showing me the beams for some stupid reason. Just give me this. Let's see if I can. I'll look and see if there's a way to like make it so that they show you where the beams are, because that's annoying. Because I see these lines where the beams are, but it's like a framing. It's just like a very abstract sort of like here's the line, the directions in, which is annoying. And then I guess it could be tagged with like a W14. But in the section, you would draw that stuff in so that you start to really understand then how much height you have here between the floor and the ceiling, and then between the ceiling and the next floor. Floor to floor, though, is what you're looking for ramps. So if this is really only going up 10 feet, I need 120 feet of length of just ramp, plus all the necessary landings sprinkled throughout to get up to 10 feet. If I turn this to 12 feet, then I need 144 feet of ramp. So I'd probably go up whatever the 144 or 72. I'd probably go up 72 feet of ramp, switch back and go up another 72 feet of ramp. And along that length of 140 that I have total, right? So ramps are interesting, but what I would recommend doing is doing the math, figuring out in section, and then making it so that all the ramps are the same so that you're not killing yourself. Because if every ramp is different, then wow, you know, it's a huge pain in the rear, a royal pain in the rump. All right. But it can be done, right? And you know, like let's say, for instance, one of your precedents, the Guggenheim Museum, right? The spiraling ramp, the helix, right? Everybody takes the elevator up, and everybody takes the ramp down slowly, right? That would probably be the model you would think you would use, right? Where do you put that elevator? Everybody goes up, and everybody has the same sort of experience. It's not like IKEA where everybody takes the stairs except for the people that can't, and they have to take the elevator up to the show.
Boulevard, that space is west? Yeah.
Yeah, that's along the western edge of the site. So 50 feet along there, 140 feet along Bridger. So you have 140 feet of length. All right, it's almost time for the morning class to end, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. But oh wait, no. Let's actually try to draw one of these ramps. Let's see what it's like to draw a ramp here, which I have never done. So this will be a great adventure. Why not, right? I can't lose any more credibility at this point. So I'm going to click ramp. You can see that you can do a run. You can draw it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just draw. It looks like I'm drawing the center line of the ramp. You can only do 30 feet of run at a time, and then you need a what do you call it? A landing, right? What's interesting is that 30 feet sort of goes from you could sort of think about this in 20-foot modules. You could think starting 5 feet in. Why is it not letting me? Oh, sorry. 5 feet in and go to the next one, and then there's a landing, and there's a way to sort of enter this module, right? And then the next one, right? Um, and the next one, and the next one. So I'm not sure why. Yeah, so let's see here. Let me hold on. Let me just try this out because I don't know either. All right, let's just do this. The ramp is not long enough to reach the top constraint, which was to go to level 2. All right, well, thank you for letting me know that. Let's see what it actually drew. It started to draw a ramp. Let's see. With railing. Hopefully the same railing we had for our stairs. Let's see here. Oh yeah, there we go. Right. And then it put the landings in. So I started to draw a ramp. So here's how that worked. Let me just undo that. Let's take a look. I'm going to go back in the plan, L1, let's say. And I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. And so I'm going to say ramp. And right now it's telling me, okay, I can draw a line. And it looks like the line is probably going to be the center line of the ramp. I could change that if I really wanted to. I think maybe boundary. No, I guess I'll just say run. I can look here and say I wanted to go from level 1 to level 2. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click over here. It's telling me I can do 30 feet of ramp at a time. And yeah. And now I'm going to start another ramp. Another set of the run of ramp here.
Now we gotta.
Yeah, because it'll stop you at 30 feet. Right?
We have a landing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do we know, when we get to it now?
The ramp is not long enough to change the slope to increase the length of the ramp. Oy. Just going to delete this ramp. Let's start again. So I know I have 140 feet across here. So let's look and see, because that's I'm testing as well. I mean, in my free time, I don't just draw ramps in Revit, but I think it's worth us sort of looking at, right? At some point, you're going to have to add ramps in some sort of project in your careers, whether it's in school or office or both or whatever. So
The lane needs to be a certain width, right? Is it calculated for that already?
the width should be the exact same. You never bottleneck, so the width should be the same as the ramps themselves, the width of landings. Now, why is it not telling me, like, giving you a readout? Oh, 120 feet of inclined ramp, 0. Oh, okay. It's telling me over here, unfortunately. So I was able to do it in 4 runs, 30 feet, right? 30 feet. So this gets me a quarter of the way, the half of the way, 3/4 of the way, full quarter of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and hit enter. And it's like, okay, cool. You've gone from level 1 to level 2. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of ramp. So let's look at another way of doing that, because that's a lot of length, right? So let's try a different way of thinking about ramp, but we do a switchback ramp. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to do 30 feet. I'll start here and do 30 feet. But let me start then over here and see if I can. It really wants me to line that up, doesn't it? Let's see, boundary, riser. That's stair. Railing. You don't have the same. Hmm. Let me exit out of here and see if there's an easy way to do this. Yeah, I get it. Quitting cannot be undone. I understand the ramp. No, it just gives me a ramp, so it doesn't give me anything else that I can control this stuff with. Interesting. Here's how I would maybe do a switchback then. Before I start to draw the ramp, I'm going to say it's going to go to level 2, but it's going to go offset. I'm going to offset it down -5 feet. All right. Now let's make more ramp. 6 inches remaining, really? What? Why did it do that? Hello? Oh, I see. Oh, okay, you can turn it like this. In fact, all right. Sorry, I'm just playing around with this tool and figuring it out on the fly, as you know. All right, so I'm just going to go back to ramp. I just sort of figured this out now. Okay, railing, ramp. I can just go from level 1 to level 2. I'm not constrained along that center line. I can, let's say, make a run here. And then I can make a run here, right? Let's see. Let me see where I'd want to make this, start this again, right? Make a run of it here. Right? So now you can make a switchback. Whoops. They don't make it easy, that's for darn sure. Right? And so what I might do is draft some lines out, maybe add an extra grid or two so I can start to understand where things could line up a little better. Because this doesn't quite line up. Like this looks pretty bad. Like this one right here in particular is pretty awful. Oh, no, I don't want to add more. Please, no. I'll go ahead and hit enter. Ramp is not long enough to reach the constraint for some reason, and then I screwed something up there. So it's not, they don't make it very easy, but it looks like there's a way to traverse this. I just don't understand why it makes you want to do this. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Let me see if I can get that a little cleaner now. Use maybe the grid lines to line up. Ramp. There's the run. Let me undo that and start again. There we go. Yeah, here. I just can go up like this. Yeah, let's go. There we go. And bam, let's hit the check mark on that. Not long enough to reach a con. What? Ugh. How much more do I have? 6 inches remaining? Oh, come on. Why? No, anyway. Maybe I would just add the 6 inches there.
So you've coded 1.1 per foot. Got 9, almost 9 feet. Like that.
Yeah, so I did 2 runs of 30 and then 2 runs of 30 that way, more or less. So let's look at this and yeah, there you go. So that could be a ramp for you. So that's to get you up 1 floor, right? And that's not necessarily an egress path for life safety. So you'd still need stairs on either side. But it's one way of thinking about it, particularly if you're thinking this is a journey, let's experiment, have fun. Let's fill up some of this atrium. You know, it could also have some really interesting light experience.
Thanks. Wow.
This thing will cast some shadows if you get some any direct light back there.
Thank you. All right.
Or, you know, thinking differently, a la the Pompidou, right? Maybe you say, well, the facade's going to be pretty dynamic because I'm going to put the stairs along the south. But those would be probably really sunny and hot staircase, but right. So anyway, or sorry, ramp. But yeah, anyway, you could always play around with these things. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, well, I think with the part of the private part, and make it family.
Yeah, so you have to load an elevator family and insert it in.
And then those camera views that we did.
Yeah.
Notice that
They're already saved. They already show up down here, right? So 3D view 1, 3D view 2, 3D view 3. Look at it under 3D views, and there's also under coordination, there's 3D views. So try and see, for whatever reason, sometimes it puts them in a different place. You can always, I thought you could click and drag to put them in a different place, but maybe not. I don't know. Are you finding them now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, if you're in like the plan and you're like, I want to move this camera, but you don't see the camera, you can always go to that view, select the frame. Now you have that camera selected, the camera frame. Now when I go to any of these plans, you'll see the camera and its target, right? You can start to move it around. All right. It's a lot to digest. It's just scratching the surface, but you now have the rest of the summertime to sort of figure this out and put together. But you know, the key thing to remembering this stuff, as you can see, is using it a lot. And you will. That's the idea, is that this is making you sort of practice some of these things, building floors, building columns, building beams, building some stairs. But composing these things together now is the real key. You had some interesting things going on with your Rhino file. Have you inserted into Revit yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, how's it look? Is it? So now you have to figure out circulation. That's where it gets really tricky.
Like this foot here or something.
Then you'll have to decide, do you want those columns to go through along the edges, the sides of your vessels, or are you just going to shorten them down, you know, quickly adjust them up or down? You know,
I think it's too what fine.
but I appreciate you putting all those columns in because now you have to make some decisions that will happen to.
But
Just open space.
not bad.
Yeah, columns just along the periphery. There's outdoor space, there's no space, right? Now something you know. And you have some decisions to make, and you start to see the decisions you have to make.
Yeah.
All right. So sometime over lunch, this video will process. I'm still recording. Let me turn the recording on.